Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I wanted to do a quick video on my experience so far with my mouse for 2025, the Scyrox V6. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Quickly going over the unboxing experience, I think the unboxing of this mouse is pretty extra. It reminds me of something Razer might do 5-10 years ago, where their packaging was just like extra. I really like how the Scyrox packaging, when you open up the box, the mouse kind of presents itself to you. I think that's really cool. And of course, you get a handful of accessories in the box as well, aside from the mouse. You also, of course, get the 8K dongle in the box. I really like how this is like more of a little puck. And I especially like this because it's different from the little like USB things that you could plug into the back of your computer and it's just like a little thing sticking out. I get that's handy for like productivity mice or office mice where you just kind of want it out of the way. But when we're talking about performance mice, especially when it comes to FPS, you want to reduce any chance for like weird signals or whatever, little like hiccups when you're using the mouse. So ideally, you want the dongle, receiver, whatever, close to your mouse. So having it look like a little puck and sit on your desk near the mouse, I think this looks awesome compared to other options where you do get the little USB stick. Of course, you also get a cable in the box, which I don't have out here, but it's a cable, whatever. And you also get an extra set of skates. So by default on this mouse, you'll get full coverage PTFE based skates covering these two sections here. And you also get an extra set of skates that are just for the corners of these, I guess, cutouts. So if you want a bit of a, I guess, swifter, faster experience, you could try those out as well. And this mouse also has great mouse skate support already, even though this mouse is still quite new. I don't want to go too much into specs because if you want the nitty gritty details, you can go on the Scyrox website. However, there are a couple specs that I think are of note. First off, the weight. The weight on the website is listed at 40 grams. However, I believe with skates and everything, it's going to lean more like 41, 42. Either way, I think it's still super impressive considering this has no cutouts anywhere at all, and the build is pretty solid. I do get a little bit of flexing here if I press hard enough, but it's not something I'm going to really feel in game, and never am I gripping the mouse that hard to the point where it'll significantly flex. Aside from weight, this mouse is using Omron optical switches, and I know those have been out for quite some time, but this is my first mouse with those switches, and I've been really enjoying them. I think they feel awesome, super responsive, especially coming from the X2 V2 Mini. And although this is also optical switches, I'm going to explain a little bit more on why I think the Scyrox feels way more responsive. So to kind of demonstrate, here I have the X2 V2 Mini, and with the kind of total travel of the press here, I find that the actual click of the switch happens more towards the middle of the total travel of the button. Whereas on the Scyrox mouse, while I believe this has more total travel with a lot of post travel, the actual switch actuation is right at the top. So this feels super responsive as opposed to having the click happen more towards the middle of the travel. And this also just feels a lot more crisp, where you get kind of a tactility to the press, whereas this is more, I guess, akin to like a linear keyboard switch. Speaking of which, let's go over a quick button overview. So we have left and right click, and as I mentioned, the click is right at the top, so it feels very, very responsive. I really like that. The scroll wheel here, we have this nice little texture. Now, I don't really feel it when I'm actually using the scroll wheel, but I think it looks really cool and is kind of signature to Scyrox with their, I guess, 2 mice that they've released so far. The actual middle click itself, I feel, is very hard to spam. I've talked about this in my X2 mini video, where this is also quite hard to spam. But when I go back to my G303 Shroud, this is super easy to spam. So I don't know if this is like a trend or what's going on here, but I don't know, these are a lot harder to spam consistently. Maybe I need to break it in a bit more, but it's tough. That said, I don't use the middle click too much in the games that I play, but if you do use it quite a bit in the games that you play, it might be something worth considering. Of course, we also have side buttons here just for forward and back, and kind of the same story with these switches. The actuation happens pretty much right away, and you have a bunch of post travel, which is how I would prefer it than the other way around. So these are perfectly satisfactory for me. On the bottom, you also have a little toggle for power and a little button for DPI cycling. Performance-wise, I haven't had any issues with this mouse. However, I feel like these days, especially when we're talking about performance FPS mice, it's pretty difficult to come across a mouse that is technically flawed. So sensors, for the most part, are fine. Button presses, also fine. No dropouts from the dongle or receiver and the mouse itself. So, right, I don't really have much to say about the performance because it's all solid. This mouse has basically every feature that you would expect out of a modern FPS-oriented mouse. So of course, you do get up to 8K Hz pulling rate with the included dongle, which is awesome to see. You can set your liftoff distance, you can set your DPI, it has motion sync, but there's one setting in there that I think is a bit unique, but I also didn't really like using it. That setting would be competition mode. So that setting I had only used for a short period of time. The reason being is because it came with significantly more battery drain, and I didn't really feel much difference with it on. That said, I'm not that great of a gamer, so there may be people that do feel a difference with it on versus off, but for me, it didn't provide any tangible difference. To give some context, with the setting on, I would probably have to charge this mouse maybe once a week or once every 1.5 weeks. With the setting off, the battery life basically doubled, at least for me, where I would only have to charge this mouse maybe once every 2-3 weeks or so. That brings it in line with my X2 V2 Mini, which also lasts about the same amount of time. Anyways, let's move on to the shape of this mouse. This mouse is almost like egg-shaped from the side, so you can see that the hump is kind of like around here, and it's actually quite large, and it tapers off slowly. It's still quite rounded off here, so kind of egg-shaped. Looking at the shape of the sides of the mouse, from the bottom you can see that it tapers in a bit and then flares back out, and it's not by a whole lot, so I think this shape works for a lot of people. And it also does still create kind of a natural place for your fingers to rest, which I really enjoy. For a quick size comparison here, we have the G303 Shroud, Pulsar X2 V2 Mini, of course the Scyrox V6, and a normal kind of credit card sized card here. Let's move on to aftermarket add-ons I've put on this mouse. First off, we have Xraypad Cicada grips. The reason why I've added these is because sometimes my hands can get a little sweaty when playing video games, and I found that without the grips, my hand would kind of slip in this area. I don't have any grips here because it kind of feels weird, but it led to my grip kind of slipping and becoming inconsistent. And to help mitigate that and have a consistent finger placement, regardless of how my hand's slipping, adding these grips have helped alleviate that. Aside from that, I've swapped the skates over to Unusualway Blackfox skates. These are specifically cut for the Scyrox V6, and these skates are special because they're made of UHM WPE or umwipe. What makes this material special is that on glass specifically, you get less of that kind of dust that would accumulate if you use PTFE skates, and they'll also last a bit longer. Also, they do provide more control over PTFE skates, and as someone who plays a lot of Counter-Strike, those kind of games, more control is very welcome. For a quick comparison between the Unusualway Blackfox skates and the Obsidian Pro Air dots from Xraypad, these skates have a very similar makeup, but I find the Blackfox to be just way faster. So these are both made of umwipe and have a foam layer to reduce noise when you're mousing around, but the Blackfox is just way faster. So that I think is super interesting, but of course this isn't one-to-one because these are dots and these are full coverage skates, so bit of a difference there. But to kind of generalize, I'd say that the Obsidian Pro Air skates are great if you want the ultimate control experience on glass. The Blackfox skates are a bit of a better middle ground in terms of glass skates because these aren't going to be as fast as PTFE on glass, but these aren't going to be as crazy controlled as the Obsidian Pro Airs. So I think this is just a happy medium that I think most people who are, say, stepping into a glass pad could enjoy. Overall, this mouse has been amazing. It definitely feels a bit big because of this hump, especially compared to mice with similar footprints, but just that hump makes it feel quite a bit bigger. Overall though, this mouse has been amazing, no performance issues, performs as expected. The inclusion of the 8K dongle in the box is awesome to see as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for my thoughts on the Scyrox V6. Of course, if you have any questions about anything mentioned in this video, just let me know down in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye!